Okay, in the previous lesson, we learned about component lifecycle events in React and how they can be used to control different aspects of our components at different points of time. What we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to use the component didMount event, or the equivalent in React hooks, to be able to initialize our game. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to create ourselves a function which will be used to initialize the game, and we're going to call it const init game. And what this guy is going to do is basically initialize our state, and we're going to do it here rather than defining it at the top of our component. So we're going to set the game board to basically be the useState here. So that reset our board with all the circles, wipe out any previous state, and set it back to being empty circles. So effectively going to see this is our initial state of our game with these white circles. We also want to initialize the player, so it's always player 1 that starts. So we're going to do set current player, and we're going to default it to player 1. So that's basically initializing our game. So what we want to now do to call that is we're going to use the useEffect hook, and we're going to make sure it only runs when the component first mounts. And we learnt how to do that in the previous lesson. So we're going to do useEffect, and it's going to be a function, and this is the important bit. We have to make sure our dependency array is basically an empty array like this. If we do that, this useEffect will only run once, and it will run once when the component first mounts. So in this useEffect, we can call our function initGame like that. And what we're going to do is maybe put a console log in our initGame function like this, saying console log initGame, and we can verify that indeed it only gets called once. So let's give that a save. Let's bring up our developer tools. We get our initGame output once to the console. Let's give it a refresh, and we should only see one instance of it. So even if we click the circles, we should not see any more init games. So we can now utilize this feature to be able to add some functionality to the button down here. So when we press new game, we effectively call our initGame function to be able to reset the game back to its initial state. So let's do that. We're going to go down to our footer control, which is here. Let's find it. And we've got a button saying new game. So we're going to give ourselves an onClick event, and we're going to pass in to this footer component a callback function which will be called when the button is clicked. So let's say onClick event like this, and we're going to set our onClick attribute to be the onClick event. So what happens then is when the button is clicked, our callback handler onClick event, which is passed in by the props from the parent component, will then be executed. So we go to our game board and we find our footer control. We need to then pass in our prop for the onClick event. I forgot what it's called for a moment. And we need to be able to define a function. So let's go up to the top here, and what we're going to do is we're simply going to call our initBoard function. So initBoard like this, and what will happen now is we should, when we press the button, it should come in here, hit the initGame function, output our console, and reset our state. Let's give that a save and give this a test. Got a bit of a mistake, and the reason why I've got a mistake is I've called initBoard rather than initGame. So the initGame is the actual function we want to call here. So let's correct that silly mistake and put initGame rather than initBoard. Let's give that a save and a refresh here. Okay, and we still have an issue, so let's have a look at the issue and see what I've done wrong. So we got expected onClickListener to be a function, instead got a value of an object type. Now where's the error occurring? It's occurring at the button in the div at the footer. So looks like I've got another typo somewhere, and we're now in our footer component. What have we done wrong here? See, what we've done is, what I've said is very easy to do by mistake, is when you are deconstructing the properties, it's very easy to completely forget the actual curly brace like this. I seem to be always doing this, so I'm obviously a bit daft. So make sure, don't make the same mistake as me, and make sure you always remember to put the curly brace when you are deconstructing the properties coming in. Let's give that a test. And a refresh. And our error has gone away. Perfect. So let's give it a test now and click the circles a few times so we are making the game in progress. And now if we hit the new game button, our game resets. We see the init game logged to the console here, so it's being correctly called, and our game has gone back to a default state. Let's test it one more time and go to player 2, for example, and let's click the new game and we go back to the beginning again. Okay, so let's leave it like this, and in the next video what we're going to do something quite cool, I think anyway, which is going to add in effectively a computer player. So rather than using 2 human players where we have to take it in turns, we're going to have a little suggest button down here next to new game, and when that's clicked we'll get the computer to figure out where the best place to move is. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. So let's do that over the next couple of videos. See you there.